It was a political power play, a move meant to show dominance and force a neighbor to its knees. When the Trump administration returned to power, it unleashed a bureaucratic storm aimed right at the heart of Mexico. The weapon of choice? Not tariffs, not walls, but the quiet, devastating power of a visa cancellation. It started as a targeted campaign, a political jab to pressure Mexico's leaders on security and immigration. But the numbers spiraled fast. Soon, it wasn't just a few people, it was tens of thousands. Families were split apart, business deals frozen, students stranded, lives that were built on a shared border and a tangled, complex relationship were just thrown into chaos. The count surged, with reports claiming over 100,000 Mexican nationals had their access to the United States revoked in a massive visa purge. The message from Washington was loud and clear: comply or be cut off. The administration expected Mexico to buckle, to concede, to fall in line. They were wrong. They forgot one crucial thing. Mexico knows how to play this game too. Now, for the first time, Mexico is hitting back where it hurts, and it's not in the way anyone expected. This isn't just about visas anymore. It's about a nation refusing to be a pawn in a game it's now strong enough to win. While whispers of a simple tit-for-tat retaliation spread, the real story of Mexico's defiance is way more strategic, way more clever, and ultimately, way more powerful. This is the story of how a nation, pushed to the brink, chose not to copy the bully, but to change the rules of the entire game. To really get the scale of Mexico's pivot, you have to understand the pressure campaign waged against it. This wasn't some subtle diplomatic nudge. It was a full-on assault on the economic and social fabric connecting the two countries. The headline figure that sent shockwaves across the border was the cancellation of visas for what was said to be over 100,000 Mexican nationals. This wasn't a slow policy change. It was a rapid, aggressive purge. The revocations seemed to hit everyone, from tourists and students to essential workers. Just imagine the chaos. A small business owner in Monterrey who spent years building relationships in Texas suddenly finds their business visa voided without a word. A university student from Mexico City, halfway through an exchange program, gets an email saying their student visa is canceled, putting their entire academic future in doubt. A family in Guadalajara that has visited relatives in California for years is now told their tourist visas are worthless. The official reasons from the Trump administration were broad. Everything from visa overstays to vague security concerns. A new, sophisticated vetting system was put in place to monitor foreign nationals in real time, even after they were already in the U.S., flagging even minor issues for automatic termination. But under all that bureaucratic jargon, the political goal was obvious: create leverage. And it wasn't just an attack on ordinary citizens. In a move of calculated aggression, the administration went after the heart of Mexico's establishment, revoking the visas of dozens of Mexican politicians and officials. This was a direct shot at President Claudia Sheinbaum's government. The message? If you don't line up with our demands on cartel enforcement and immigration, we will isolate your leaders and cut them off. It was a move designed to humiliate, to sow division, and to attack the nation's sovereignty. For Mexico, a country clearly in the crosshairs, the message was amplified. The wave of visa revocations was Washington's way of showing that no one, not even its most vital trading partner, was safe from this new, hardline doctrine. It was an attempt to force Mexico into a position of weakness, using the lives of its citizens as bargaining chips. The administration claimed it was about protecting Americans. But in the process, they lit a fire of resentment and awakened a long-dormant sense of national defiance in their southern neighbor. The visa cancellations were supposed to be the end of the story. Instead, they became Chapter 1 of a new one: Mexico's strategic strike back. The visa war, as devastating as it was just the opening shot. The Trump administration's strategy wasn't just about restricting movement, it was about systematically tearing down the pillars of cooperation that had defined the U.S.-Mexico relationship for decades. The goal was to reassert American dominance, and Mexico was square in the middle of the bullseye. The most alarming move came with direct military threats. The rhetoric of sending U.S. troops into Mexico to fight drug cartels, once on the political fringe, suddenly felt dangerously real. These weren't just empty words. The administration had been laying the groundwork for months. Several Mexican cartels had already been designated as foreign terrorist organizations, a legal move that dramatically expands the range of U.S. action. Fentanyl was classified as a weapon of mass destruction, another legal maneuver designed to broaden executive authority. The threat of U.S. drones or special forces operating on Mexican soil, once unthinkable, was now a constant, looming presence. Alongside the military posturing was a sustained economic assault. The administration used trade like a weapon, looking to exploit Mexico's economic reliance on the U.S. market. A high-stakes review of the USMCA, the trade pact governing North America, was scheduled for 2026, and President Trump made it clear he was willing to blow it all up, hinting at a potential annulment of the pact that handles nearly a third of all U.S. trade. This threat hung over every single interaction. The pressure extended to other parts of Mexican foreign policy, too. When Mexico continued oil shipments to Cuba, the Trump administration responded with threats of new tariffs, forcing President Sheinbaum into a tight spot between regional solidarity and the risk of economic punishment. Even the aviation industry was hit, with disruptions to airline routes and cargo flights creating yet another point of pressure designed to remind Mexico just how vulnerable it was. Every action, the visas, the military threats, the trade warfare, was part of a larger strategy of intimidation. It was the bully with a microphone approach in full force. The message from Washington was one of dominance, not partnership. It was a declaration that the era of cooperation was over. The U.S. was building a cage around Mexico, but in doing so, it completely misjudged the character and the resolve of the nation it was trying to trap. But Mexico didn't just get angry. It got strategic. Facing an all-out assault on its sovereignty, President Claudia Sheinbaum's government launched a response that was as smart as it was defiant. Instead of getting into a petty tit-for-tat fight, Mexico started to fundamentally rewire its place in the world. The strike back wasn't one big explosion. It was a steady, calculated campaign of diplomatic defense and a powerful assertion of national dignity. First, the diplomatic front. President Sheinbaum became the face of calm, unwavering resolve. When confronted with threats of U.S. military intervention, her response was always the same: absolutely not. In a televised address that echoed across Latin America, she framed Mexico's cooperation with Washington as one of coordination without subordination. Mexico is a free, independent, and sovereign country, she declared, adding that her people would unite against any foreign intervention. She didn't escalate, but she drew a firm line in the sand. Behind the scenes, this was backed by a brilliant strategic move. Instead of just saying no to U.S. demands for military action against cartels, Mexico offered a powerful how. Rather than letting U.S. troops on its soil, a political non-starter, Sheinbaum's government countered by proposing deeper intelligence sharing. This was a masterstroke. It addressed American security concerns while keeping Mexican forces in control of all operations inside their own country. It turned a demand for submission into a negotiation between partners. Mexico wouldn't be a passive stage for American ops. It would be an active, leading partner, but on its own terms. The second major front was economic. The pressure campaign exposed the huge risks of Mexico's heavy dependence on the U.S. For decades, around 80% of all Mexican exports went north. The visa war and trade threats were a brutal wake-up call to finally accelerate a long-overdue strategy: diversification. This wasn't about ditching the U.S. market, but about diluting its power. The plan was twofold. First, move up the value chain into more complex manufacturing, making Mexican industry more essential to the U.S. Second, and this was the real act of defiance, was the aggressive hunt for new trade partners, and new sources of foreign investment from around the globe. The goal was clear: build an economy that couldn't be held hostage by a single trading partner. And what about those rumors of Mexico hitting back by denying visas to Americans? While the idea of payback was a powerful narrative, the real response was far more profound. Instead of just copying Trump's tactics, Mexico chose to play a longer, smarter game. The real strike back wasn't about closing a door, it was about building new ones. It was about creating a new foundation of power that would make such bullying tactics useless in the future. Mexico's strength wasn't in its ability to imitate American pressure, but in its ability to rise above it. All of this has triggered a fundamental shift in the U.S.-Mexico relationship. The Trump administration's campaign of maximum pressure, designed to force Mexico into a weaker position, has backfired. Instead of breaking Mexico's will, it has forged a new era of Mexican strategic independence. The nightmare Washington intended for Mexico has boomeranged, creating a new and challenging reality for the United States itself. The biggest consequence is that Washington's aggressive stance forced Mexico to grow up fast. It has accelerated its evolution from a dependent junior partner into an assertive regional power. The threats from 2025 and 2026 served as a national wake-up call, showing the very real risks of that dependency. President Sheinbaum's administration had no choice but to start building a future that wasn't reliant on American goodwill. This has led to a clear pivot toward global diversification. The push to strengthen trade ties with Europe, Asia, and Latin America is now a national security imperative. Every new trade deal, every new investment from a non-U.S. source chips away at the leverage Washington once took for granted. The perception of Mexico is changing. It's no longer just seen as an extension of the U.S. economy, but as a global player in its own right. President Sheinbaum's firm defense of her nation's sovereignty also had a powerful effect. Her calm but absolute refusal to allow U.S. troops on Mexican soil has solidified her position as a strong national leader. In a region with a long and painful history of U.S. intervention, Mexico's stand was watched closely. By refusing to be bullied, Mexico set a powerful example for other nations, positioning itself as a leader in defending regional sovereignty. However, the situation is still incredibly tense. A miscalculation by either side could have devastating consequences. The legal framework for a potential U.S. strike inside Mexico is already in place. The risk of a limited military action, while still unlikely, can't be dismissed. The U.S.-Mexico relationship is now a high-wire act without a safety net. What's certain is that the old relationship is gone forever. The Trump administration, in trying to bend Mexico to its will, has accidentally liberated it. Mexico has been reminded of its own strength, its strategic importance, and its deep well of national pride. It has learned that defiance doesn't have to be loud, it can be quiet, strategic, and much more effective. The United States now faces a neighbor that is more confident, more independent, and less willing to be told what to do than at any point in modern history. The story of the visa war was supposed to be a simple tale of power, a giant asserting its will on its neighbor. It turned into something else entirely. It became a story of unintended consequences, of a strategy that accomplished the exact opposite of what it set out to do. The attempt to humiliate Mexico became the catalyst for its empowerment. The effort to isolate Mexico ended up pushing it onto the world stage. This is the new reality in North America. A relationship once defined by dependence is now being rewritten in the language of strategic independence. President Sheinbaum's government knew that true strength isn't about mirroring your opponent's aggression. It's about redesigning the entire board, building a future where that aggression just doesn't work anymore. The U.S. may still have more military and economic might, but Mexico has rediscovered a different kind of power. The power of sovereignty, strategic patience, and national dignity. In the high-stakes game of global politics, Mexico just proved it's no longer just a player. It's changing the rules. The iron fist from the north was meant to crush Mexico's spirit. Instead, it seems to have forged it into steel. And in this new world, one lesson is crystal clear. Respect isn't asked for, it's demanded. What do you think the future holds for the U.S.-Mexico relationship? Will this new era of Mexican defiance last? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found this analysis insightful, make sure to like and subscribe for more deep dives into the geopolitical shifts that are shaping our world. Thanks for watching.